I am here with Curtis Sliwa, who is running for mayor of New York City. We're going to talk about what makes him different from Eric Adams. We're definitely going to get into what he thinks of Andrew Yang and basic income, take some questions from the audience. But before we get started, let's warm it up.
There's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the gang gang. Drew Yang gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang gang, that's who I hooked up. Yo, there's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the gang gang.
Hello, nerds.
Yo, what's up? Hello, nerds.
Curtis Sliwa, welcome to the Nerd Zone. How are you, sir?
Look, I couldn't be having any better time in the world. I'm a person of no consequence in New York City because they've already anointed Eric Adams as the Mashiach, the Messiah, the savior of our city. Oh, didn't they do that with Andrew Cuomo, our governor? Oh, that's right. Made a mistake with idolatry there, and they're making a mistake with idolatry here. Don't go to sleep on Curtis Sliwa, though.
Well, I mean, a lot of this audience was supporting a different candidate for the Democratic primary, so there's probably a number of people who are have reserved feelings, let's just say, about Eric Adams. But you, sir, did get the nomination of the Republican Party. While we were getting started, you mentioned that wasn't you weren't exactly the party favorite or in terms of the establishment. Tell me a little bit about your journey to nab the nomination.
Well, I was the last candidate to announce of over 13 candidates when you consider Democrats and Republicans, March 15th. And people said, you have no money. This is a publicity stunt. And I said, no, I'm a populist. You know, I'm a man of the people. I'm the only candidate. I ride the subway every day. I walk the streets every day. You know, I'm in touch with average everyday people. You'll never win the Republican primary. And so my opponent, Fernando Mateo, he was out there. He was fornicating and copulating with Donald Trump. You know, he said, I love Trump. I'm a Trumper. Then he drops $1 million on my head the last 2 weeks. And he says, Curtis Sliwa is not a Republican, and he's a never Trumper. And I never argued with that because he was absolutely correct. I had been chairman of the New York State Reform Party. I've always been an independent. And we got wiped out by Andrew Evil Eyes Cuomo, who wanted to destroy all third parties in his maniacal desire to control every aspect of political life. And so I became a Republican, ran in the primary, and I was able to beat Fernando Mateo by 70% of the vote to 30%, most of that vote coming from hardcore Trumpers. But don't put me in a box. I will tell you this. I met candidate Andrew Yang when we were both going to a funeral of a slain New York City police officer who had been doing highway duty, and he was hit by a vehicle. And we went all the way out to Suffolk County. We left the city. We were the only two who actually went to the wake. I got a chance to talk with him a little bit. I thought the guy was like a normal human being, unlike politicians, of which I am becoming more of. The moment I kiss a baby and shake a hand, you're a politician. But he was a happy warrior. What I felt, what went wrong is he got lured into the Venus trap of Democratic local politics, which is mean, nasty, divisive. And then Eric Adams, as he's always done, playing the race card, calling Andrew Yang a hustler, a charlatan, coming in with these whacked out, crazy ideas. I'm saying to myself, excuse me, Eric, you're part of the corrupt Democratic Kings County machine in which you want to be wine-dined and pocket-lined. Maybe we ought to listen to Andrew Yang's ideas, right? Especially, he was saying with artificial intelligence, robotics coming, Bitcoins, cryptocurrency, all these new ideas that he was introducing into the vernacular of political discussion. And Eric Adams just shut him down, played the race card. And I felt, well, don't go that way, happy warrior. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was Andrew himself or his consultants who lured him into just throwing the mud. And that just doesn't work for Andrew Yang. I liked him because he was a happy warrior. I'm a happy guy. I'm lucky to be alive. I was shot 5 times in 1992 on the orders of the Guardians to the Gambinos, and I'm alive. And I thank every day I'm alive when I wake up and I see my 16 rescue cats with my wife, Nancy, in a 328 square foot apartment on the Upper West Side. Now, is that micro living or what? No Republican lives like that. I can assure you of that.
Did you say 328 square feet for real?
That's bad. Yeah, that's it. I beat Elon Musk, who, as you know, just moved into a 350 square foot apartment in Texas and claims this is the future. Hey, Elon, I beat you to the punch. I've been living this way for quite a few years, and we rescue cats from the shelters before they get euthanized. I'm the only candidate ever in New York City to say, when I'm elected mayor, we will have no-kill shelters. We're not killing a cat, a dog, or an animal again. We're going to be more like Austin, which has a no-kill shelter policy. We're going to follow their lead when it comes to animal welfare.
You talked about division within the city. One of the viewers was saying that there was a time where Adams was saying that there was an effort to suppress black votes, and that some people think that Adams can be a divisive candidate. How would you unify this very diverse city? I mean, it is full of people from very different backgrounds. And, Adams may not be the great unifier, but it is a community, a city with people from all different kind of points of view. Do you think you can pull folks together? How would you do that?
Tom, let me correct you. He is unifying the power, the elite, the real estate interests in New York City to spend the money with him. That's who he's unifying, not the common man, common woman. The way you deal with this is, look, when Andrew Yang was a candidate and there was all the attacks on Asians here in New York City, all attacks, and I've been in the forefront with the Guardian Angels of protecting them in Chinatown and Flushing and on 8th Avenue, which is the largest Asian American community now in Brooklyn. Andrew Yang brought attention to that subject. And they had rallies, politicians, all wanted to be heard, Eric Adams and everyone else. Have you seen any rallies since? The silence is deafening. We just had a case where a woman from Burma was dragged down the steps. The person responsible is still out and not around. The cops haven't caught him yet. We put up $20,000 as a reward because she passed away in Bellevue. And there were no elected officials, nobody running for office. It's almost as if we've accepted this as a statistic each day. I give all praise to Andrew Yang because he consistently prioritized that issue where other elected officials only did it because Andrew Yang led the way on that. Obviously, we were doing it. We do this for all kinds of people all the time. I'm the leader of the Guardian Angels and have been doing this for 42 years in New York City and now in 13 countries and 130 cities around the world. So this is part and parcel of my belief system. We are humanitarians. You go out there and serve those who cannot help themselves, the emotionally disturbed, the homeless that are everywhere. Notice whether you're out in California, you're in the heartland of America, you're here on the East Coast, homeless, emotionally disturbed everywhere. We want to put blinders on. We don't want to see them. We act as if these are people of no consequence. These are lost souls. We need to help. We need to be compassionate, as I and the Guardian Angels have been for 42 years. A lot of our politicians are not compassionate at all. Everything is rhetoric. How about getting into the streets, in the subways, in the parks, and caring for them? I'll never forget when the pandemic and the lockdown came, we went into Penn Station, which became the sanctuary for the emotionally disturbed and the homeless, and people were screaming at it, put the mask on, wear your gloves, you're going to catch coronavirus. These people were infected. I said, how dare you? When Mother Teresa and her nuns were in Calcutta with the lepers, which I've been there in Calcutta, was she wearing gloves or masks? I mean, nobody at that point understood how crippling this coronavirus could be. Eventually, we got up to speed. But everyone abandoned ship on the emotionally disturbed and the homeless. They had nowhere to go to the bathroom. They closed all the bathrooms. I said to myself, hey, even a billionaire has to eliminate every day. Where are these poor, desperate people going to go? And then you complain that they're eliminating in the street or in the subway. Where are they going to get food? And most important element, water. They're dehydrating. They need their medicine. They need to be taken to hospital. We need to be compassionate. Oh, everybody, they're the dregs of society. We're pulling our city, our society down. Wrong. It's many who consider themselves progressive who have not tended to the needs of these desperately in need people. And that's what I believe in, compassion. We have to be humane, and we have to help those who cannot help themselves. That's what we're here for. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. As my father raised me, a merchant seaman at 55 years, and my mother, Francesca, Curtis, do good things for people. Don't ask anything in return. Don't ask when, why, or how, but you will get nachas. You will get joy beyond any money you could ever make. And that's the way I've lived my life. I'm going to end up getting buried in a cardboard box at the rate I'm going in Potter's Field. But you know something? I've enjoyed every moment of my life because it's been dedicated to selfless service. And that's the way I was raised. And I know other people out there were raised the same way.
You know, speaking about folks who are getting left behind, I know a lot of this audience is thinking, well, that's one of Yang's ideas, was to provide an economic floor to people and to have a basic income pilot where rather than creating new kind of large government programs, you could provide direct cash relief, and then people can use that money in the way that they think is best for them. I'm curious, have you thought about basic income, and what's your take on that as a policy?
Oh, absolutely. Because look, it's the coming wave with artificial intelligence, with robotics. I see it all around us. Look, I did talk radio for 30 years. If they could replace me with something with artificial intelligence and a robot, you know, like, well, this is before your time or others' time, but you see it on the reruns. Lost in Space. Will Robinson, danger, Will Robinson, danger. That was a robot back then. And we realized that was eventually what was going to happen. And it's happening now at such a fast rate. And how many men and women who don't have negotiable skills? That's why I promote vocational training more so than academic training sometimes. But there will never be enough jobs. So I'm more than happy to experiment, to do trials. Why not? Universal basic income. And I've said, let's do a 2-year trial. You have 200, let's say 500 people at $1,100 a month. No restrictions, no questioning who they are. Hey, you may get a billionaire, you may get somebody in the upper middle class, you know, just randomly pick people. And then let's follow it where it leads us. Let's follow the analytics. What do we got to lose? What? $7 million in a budget of $100 billion where our politicians, our elected officials have spent our money, our tax dollars like drunken sailors. What would be wrong with trying it? And it's a way to bridge the partisan gap, because there are a lot of people on the left, a lot of progressives who believe in this. And it's a way to say, look, somebody like Curtis Sliwa, populist, says, let's try it out. Let's see where it leads us, because this is the future. You know, you can say no now, but if we don't start preparing for this, so many people in our society are going to be more. There's going to be more homelessness, more despair, more people using drugs, more people self-medicating as a result of not having the means to take care of themselves.
What have you chatted with other folks in New York about the idea of a pilot? What's the kind of reaction you get if you bring that up?
Well, naturally, a lot of you, come on, Curtis. No Republican talks like that. What are you, in a drug-induced psychosis? Were you smoking Maui Wowie and Hindu Kush and you didn't take out the seeds and stems when you were doing puff, puff, fast? So they think, and I said, you know, you got it all wrong. I'm a populist. We got to try new ideas. When I was 15 years old, you know how many years ago that was? I'm 67. There was no such thing as Earth Day, recycling, environmental awareness. I ran one of the first recycling centers in New York City, collected tons of newspapers, bottles, cans, and had industrial warehouses come pick it up from my yard in my basement. People thought I was insane in the brain. Now look at it. It's part of what we do. In 1976, I married a gay couple in a public housing project in the heart of the South Bronx. Even gay and lesbian couples at that time said, oh, we shouldn't try to get married because people will really be angry at us. We should just stick with domestic partnership. You know, defense of the Marriage Act. Remember Clinton's and all the liberals and progressives. I had no problem marrying a gay couple, one of whom worked for me because I was a night manager at that time, and I was one of my best employees. He asked me a simple thing. You think you could marry us? Because they won't marry us in the eyes of a church or even civil authorities. And I'd say, hey, you got it. Well, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to live with the person you want to live. People thought that was, hey, you're out of your mind, especially me. I'm known as a macho, maniacal guy, tough guy. But this is what you got to do. You got to be ahead of the curve, because if not, you're going to be $1 short and a day late. This earth does not stop for us. This world does not stop because we live in a very parochial or insular way of thinking. We got to move forward. And we've got to test out different ideas to determine what's in the best interest of everybody, not just the rich, the powerful, and the elite, which in my election here in New York City, they're the shot callers. They've anointed Eric Adams the mayor. Guess what? Don't go to sleep on Curtis Sliwa, because I'm out there in the subways, in the streets with the peeps.
Are you sure you're the Republican Party nominee? You don't sound like a Trump Republican at all. What's the reaction you're getting from whoever's left in the Republican Party?
A lot of the blue-collar working-class Republicans identify with me because they've grown up with me. They said, well, here's Curtis. He's been down there in the streets and subways, guardian angel, selfless service, protecting those who can't protect themselves. He's the real deal. And although they have disagreements with me, they understand this is about fighting for the soul of New York City, the survival of New York City. I'm the only candidate who is saying we need a financial control board in government to control what we spend, because we don't know how to spend money and account for money. We waste so much. We have a program here in New York City created by Bill de Blasio and his wife called Thrive. We've spent supposedly $1.25 billion to care for the emotionally disturbed. There are more emotionally disturbed than ever before. I'm the only candidate saying, where's the money? Put the spreadsheets out, subpoena the records. This is a ripoff of money for the needy, those who can't help themselves, these lost souls. This is a sin against humanity. And not Eric Adams, not any of the others. They never even brought it up in their Democratic primary. I'm going to keep harping away at this, is that we need to be accountable for every nickel, dime, and penny we have. People have gotten used to working at home. It may be more holistic and homeopathic to do it, rather than be like sardines coming 2 hours each way, stuck in traffic, a mass transit. Maybe this is a better way to do things. And maybe we don't need all these huge monster buildings, 80 stories high, with glass and concrete and steel, that we're going to have to turn now at the rate we're going into more storage space. You know how you have that little storage space? I know me, I'm a clutterer. I collect stuff, so I have to rent a storage space so that we don't keep it in the 328 square foot apartment with the 16 rescue cats. The point is, there's a whole different evolution taking place in our lifestyles, and we have to accommodate that instead of thinking we're going to get everybody to come back. Everybody's going to be working like they were before. Ixnay, that's not happening. Look at e-commerce. People have gotten so used to e-commerce. How are we going to get them to get back to the mom and pop shop, the mid-level size business? Let's get real here and deal with the realities of where we're all moving towards.
Yeah, I think you're talking about this kind of transformation, and the economy and how we live is going to be probably very different in the next 5 or 10 years, which kind of is one of the arguments for basic income, to help people as they transition. Because if you owned one of those mom and pop stores through no fault of your own, like because of technology and innovation, like people are not going to go as much, and you're going to need a way to kind of weather that transition. And it seems like very strong alignment with a lot of what Yang was talking about. I want to ask you about the environmental stuff. I mean, everybody watching the news, whether they're here in California, we have a bunch of fires and Germany. You've got floods like biblical proportions, record heat, extreme weather. What do you think is the New York City mayor's job when it comes to preparing the city for the new climate?
Follow the lead in Amsterdam. We're going to have to build the dikes. We're going to have to build walls because you got people out there. There's no such thing as climate change, global warming. No, the sea levels keep rising, right? We get hit with a superstorm, Sandy, which should be a wake-up call. We haven't recovered from that yet. We see what's happening environmentally all over the world. And remember, I was an environmentalist at the age of 15. That was unheard of back then. So I understand you don't take care of Mother Earth, and Mother Earth is going to pimp slap us. We're going to be, if you remember, when Linda Blair got slapped in the head, and our head was going around and around and around in that movie. So what's going to happen to us? We're not heeding the call of Mother Nature that's angry at us and getting angrier by the moment. And a lot of people are going to suffer. And it's not just the poor, the impoverished, the indigent. I was talking with a guy from Bangladesh the other day. It was in Dhaka, came from Dhaka, where they have no dikes. They have no levees, and they're constantly getting flooded out by monsoons. I say, well, you're going to have to go the direction of Amsterdam. And pretty soon we're going to have to go in that direction if we're going to preserve this great city of New York. Nobody's listening. Everybody is just saying, we got to do something. Well, we got to move incredibly quickly if we're going to save this planet. I mean, all the signals are that we're starting to burn up. And there's not enough AC in the world to keep us all cool, calm, and collected without even adding to the global warming. And by the way, they talk electric cars. I wish that were the answer. But you need energy for electric cars. And that means you got to create more energy. So do we use nuclear, which I'm a supporter of? And some people say absolutely not. It's a clean form of energy. But hey, look, there are potential problems with that. Or do we keep just sucking up, all those fossil fuels in any way we can get it, natural gas, coal, everything else, and just polluting the air and causing us to basically bake. It's like an easy bake oven that we've created. When I was a kid, my sisters had an easy bake oven. It's like, this is what we're turning Mother Earth into.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely becoming more and more real every day that you just read the news or see what's going on around you. In addition to climate, we talked a little bit about violence on the streets. That was a big topic during the Democratic primary. And Eric Adams used to make the case that, hey, he's worn the Kevlar vest. He's carried a badge for the city. What would your approach to crime be for New Yorkers?
First of all, I'm out there with the young people, mostly young men, some young women, who believe that they need to express themselves out of the barrel of a 9mm loaded gun. That's the machismo. When I go into the inner city, you know what the number one question I get is, hey, let me see those bullet holes that the Gottis and Gambinos put in you with those hollow point bullets. I have to explain to them, no. That's not the goal, to get shot and survive or to shoot somebody. There's a much better way. It's called communication. Being able to communicate. Being able to massage that muscle between both ears, our brain, the most important thing that we have going for us. It's not through the use of violence. And, the phallic symbol for all guys is to have a gun. Well, guess what? I've been shot 5 times by organized crime and luckily survived. I don't carry a gun. I could have. I would have been given a carry permit. I don't wear a bulletproof vest. And there are people who threaten me all the time. And I just say, hey, go for it. Do what you got to do. But I'm not going to be intimidated or frightened. And as mayor, I'm not carrying a gun. Like Eric Adams said, I'll carry a gun to church. I'll carry a gun in the subway. You're the leader of a city that has a gun violence problem with young male adults. You don't think they're going to look at that as you being a sanctimonious hypocrite? Do as I say, but not as I do. You're going to be the mayor. You don't carry a gun. I never carry a gun. I understand why some people have to carry guns, but I lead an organization, Guardian Angels, worldwide. We don't carry weapons. Weapons are only going to increase the severity of the problem. And you can't say to one group of people, you can't have weapons, while another group does. It's not to suggest police officers shouldn't have guns. But I'm telling you, at the rate we're going with young adults, they believe that it's the power of the gun that rules. That's why people get out of their way, like the Red Sea parted for Moses. And I'm all into pacifying them and explaining to them there's a much better way. And it's not out of the barrel of a gun, but you have to lead by example. You can't just say it, you got to do it. Eric Adams, not going to do it by constantly talking about how he carries a gun. What do you need to carry a gun for? I don't understand that. You're an elected official, you want to be mayor? How are you going to influence young men? By the way, Andrew Yang never talked about carrying a gun. I don't carry a gun. At the rate that Eric Adams is going, everyone in the areas he's talking about is going to have to wear a bulletproof body condom, because that's, oh yeah, we talk about 1 shot, 2 shots, to relieve the virus. Get it. I'm inoculated. But the biggest problem we have is people firing lead in the streets and not being held accountable and nothing being done to stifle it. So I'm all about bringing peace and prosperity to those neighborhoods that are ravaged with gun violence. I'm more concerned about the elderly, the women, the children, the infirm, who are forced to live in solitary confinement cells as a result of all the gunplay in the streets. They can't leave their apartment. I know that. I've been locked up 76 times in the course of the first 13 years of organizing the Guardian Angels. I know what it's like to get a wooden shampoo and a concrete facial from cops who thought we were vigilantes or the Hells Angels. Luckily, that doesn't happen any longer. But I know how cops can take advantage of you, but I also know how people can take advantage of correctional officers and cops. I've been on both sides of that. So I think I can really be a better person to determine the right or the wrong of certain situations based on that situation.
So when I was doing some phone banking for Yang, I talked to a dentist who said that her customers, her clients, some of them are afraid to come to her office now because of the danger of on the subway. And while I agree with you, guns are not the solution. I'm curious, like, what would you do to help people feel safe again in such a great city where now many of them don't feel safe?
Well, it's interesting because my baptism in fire was in the subways. I've been riding subways by myself since I was 5 years old. And the people who are most endangered in the subway are women. Mm-hmm. You get a group of men who want to prove to these women that they're not suffering from erectile dysfunction. They're pervs, they're gropers, they're sexual deviants. And this male structure that we have that's in charge of policing never seems to understand that that's driving people out of mass transit. Women, many of them, there are more women workers than there are now male workers, more women who are responsible for the maintenance of their household than males. And yet they're subjected to this. And then you have the emotionally disturbed who should not be in the subways. I remember how all of a sudden when Andrew Yang brought that up in a debate and said, oh, they should be brought to mental health facilities and given their medicine. Oh, you can't do that. That's violating the right. He was right. He was right. The only word he missed in that description, because they were all ganging up on him, not the Yang gang, but the gang of Democrats, was the compassionate approach that I oftentimes use to convince them that they got to get their medicine, they got to get their medical health care. And the many homeless who live in the parks, the streets, the mass transit system. We have shelters that are nothing more than warehouses. You show up at 10 at night, that's your curfew. They kick you out the door at 7:30 in the morning. No programs for your alcohol or your drug problems or your emotional disorders. We have so much vacant land upstate New York because so many people have joined the exodus out of New York State. We could set up compounds like we used to have for single able-bodied men and women to go up, dry out, take care of themselves. They do their own farming, their own nurturing. You have Job Corps there, teach them negotiable skills. It's very difficult to rehab yourself in the city when you're being exposed to all these temptations that unfortunately you had gotten weak to. You can do it upstate and then bring them back. When they're all of a sudden, they're sane, they're sober, they're whole, they have a skill, and then they can be integrated back into this huge metropolitan area if they choose, or live upstate because maybe they find out that life upstate is a lot better than life in the city.
Curtis, I know we're running towards the end of the time that you have available. I want to recap what I think I heard about basic income, given that this audience is very keen on it. What I think I heard was Curtis Sliwa, the Republican nominee for mayor of New York City, is supportive of a basic income pilot of 500 people at $1,000 a month to study it, to understand it, to see what works, what doesn't work, and you're open and supportive of that. Did I hear that right?
Yes. Just a caveat to that is I'm also the independent party candidate. So the people who would never vote for a Republican, like my own father and mother, they were hardcore Democrats. They weren't Reagan Democrats, Giuliani Democrats. If they were alive today and I was only on the Republican line, guess what? They wouldn't vote for their own son. And I'm a Republican who can go into neighborhoods where the only Republican they've ever seen is Abraham Lincoln on a $5 bill. So there will be a lot of people who vote for me on the independent line. Yes. And not only that, no restrictions on how the money is spent by the individual recipients. I trust people. I don't trust politicians. And if I'm good enough to get elected mayor of the city of New York, hell to anybody that would trust me. You got to keep my feet and my hands to the fire. That's what a free press is supposed to do, not cozy up to the elected officials or those running for office. They have to hold us accountable because given an opportunity, you don't think that I would do DID, deny a problem, ignore it, delay doing anything, issue a press release and hope that because I had a cup of coffee with you, you'll just print my press release instead of doing a deep dive and saying, Sliwa, you're a fake, phony, fraudulent fugazi on this issue. We want a free press. We want more free speech. If you are an advocate to fight hate speech, you do it with more free speech, more journalism, more outlets to hold elected officials accountable because if given the opportunity, they're not going to serve the people. They're going to serve their own self-interest. We've seen that amongst Democrats and Republicans. Let's learn from that. Let's do it the right way.
How many debates are you going to have with Eric Adams? I can't wait to watch it if it's going to be available.
2.
Do you know when's the next one?
Yeah, they're in October, late October, and I can promise all of you, I'm going to ask him publicly to apologize the way he demeaned Andrew Yang, the happy warrior, who really set a positive tone to the beginning of a very contested primary where millions and millions of dollars were raised, and why he decided to demean Andrew Yang instead of just saying, hey, I disagree with Andrew Yang on this subject, this subject, this subject. I don't remember Andrew Yang demeaning Eric Adams, except at the very end, which I think maybe his consultant said, you got to do this. You're down in the mud. No. I would have suggested to Andrew Yang he not do that. He was doing great when he was a happy warrior and admitting his faux pas, admitting his mistakes, and admitting that he wanted to move into the future. He wanted to develop new ideas. When he said, I would have somebody like Kathy Garcia manage the day-to-day details of running government at City Hall. That was brilliant. And then right away she said, that's sexist. Well, maybe he didn't say it exactly the perfect way, but he is a mayor who could have brought us into a new way of doing things. You got to spend a lot of time doing that, while she was brilliant at being the crisis manager for de Blasio, who had a crisis every 5 seconds. And notice, who was de Blasio supporting behind the scenes? Eric Adams. That's right, part of the corrupt Democratic machine in Brooklyn. He didn't support Kathy Garcia, who was his fixer whenever he had a problem, or Wiley, who had been his consigliere, his legal consigliere, and he went out of his way to demean Yang every chance he could get. So notice, who's embracing one another? Eric Adams is de Blasio 2.0. He embraced de Blasio and he embraced Andrew Cuomo. So you want more of Cuomo and more of de Blasio, you elect Eric Adams. But I'm going to demand that he apologize for the way he demeaned Andrew Yang, and I'm going to extol what I thought Andrew Yang brought to the process and how positive he was and how negative Eric Adams has been.
Curtis, what a pleasure it's been to have you in the Nerd Zone. You know, I've been watching the chat. There's a lot of folks who are saying, hey, I kind of like this guy. They may have expected someone else, but as they heard you speak, I think there's a lot of folks who maybe you come across almost more as an independent than a Trump Republican, that's for sure. And for people who are kind of interested in getting to know you more, maybe volunteering or joining the cause, like what can they do to participate in your campaign?
Well, all they got to do is go to CurtisSliwaForMayor.com, CurtisSliwaForMayor.com, and look at the panoply of different platform issues I've taken. And just as you said, I'm not a Trump Republican. Republicans will tell you that. I'm a never Trumper. I've been an independent my whole life, chairman of the New York State Reform Party. So don't put me in a box. View me as a populist because I'm there for the people. I ride the subways. I walk the streets. I have touch for the common man, common woman. Show me another campaign where the corporate elite didn't actually support the Republican. Me, they run from me. They want nothing to do with Curtis Sliwa because they know my interests are the interests of the average everyday people. That's why universal basic income is so important. Because if we let the elite keep just moving forward, making massive amounts of money and not realizing the chaos that's awaiting us in the future, why not start now with artificial intelligence, robotics, taking the positions of so many men and women out there? What are we going to do? Just leave them at home to max and relax? Or are we going to give them a way to improve their own quality of life? I believe in self-help. Government can assist that. But I trust people. I do not trust politicians. Never have, never will.
Well, I think we'll end on that note, Curtis. It was a great conversation. I hope that we'll be able to have others in the future. And I'll definitely be checking out your site to learn more about you. I remember growing up in New Jersey, driving to the city every weekend. And I remember seeing you on the news, trying to help people stay safe on those streets. So appreciate the good work you've done. And I'll be looking to learn more about your other policies and stuff you've been working on. But for now, we're going to say goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds. Hope to see you down the road.
I love it.